You're listening to Navid Moosa of The Mindset Movement. Good day, good people. My name is Navid Moosa. I'm your host today and always for The Mindset Movement, the podcast. Each and every week, we do our best to bring you guys value. What does that mean? That means we take our stories, our experiences, and our guest here, and we try to give you guys something that either you want to know about, or maybe you know someone who wants to know about it. And so without further ado, maybe we're going to get right into it. Once again, this is series number 3. It's a 4-part series. We've done 2. Series 1, we talked about custody and oversight. We talked about direct versus LLC IRAs. And we talked about just the general marriage between Next Generation and ErisX. And then series 2, we talked about regulations. Regulations, there's no way around it, guys. It is what it is. But personally, if you didn't watch it, please watch it. John and I agreed upon the fact that regulations is good. Regulations means you've caught the attention. Regulations means we now have a box that we can play in instead of having a whole bunch of uncertainties. From that discussion, we got onshore, offshore. So please welcome my guest back again for a 3rd week in a row, John.Denza from ErisX. How you doing, man?
Thanks, Navid. Great having you again. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for your time. And again, we talked about the regulations, and you had alluded a couple of times about, onshore, offshore, what we can do within these boundaries and stuff like that. So let's get into it. Let's talk about that, ErisX and the onshore, offshore effect.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about in the last episode about how important it is to have regulation. We talked about the confines of the United States and the federal and the state level and so forth. A lot of your listeners probably hear about some of these offshore exchanges where they should really give it some thought. I mean, when you're looking at the offshore, one of the risks of interacting with them, you don't have that same level of regulation that you do in the United States. You don't have regulatory groups at the state and federal level looking after the individual investor. So I'm going to take a couple of examples. Think about this. There was a few years ago, there was an exchange in Canada, I think it was called Quadriga, and the CEO was the only one that had the keys to the custody of the vault that held all the coins. The guy basically disappeared, and people, unfortunately, didn't have access to their funds. And they still, to this day, I think they're working with a third party to try to unlock the vault to get access to those coins.
Holy crap.
So that's my point, is that we talk about the U.S. being behind on regulation, but sometimes you got to take 2 steps back to take a step forward, because you know what? You might have some growing pains because of the regulation, but when you're looking at it long term, is really the healthier way to go. So here's another example, and this was big into the news too. Another exchange called BitMEX. For your users, a lot of users probably don't understand this concept, but BitMEX had what was called a perpetual future. What does that mean? That means that basically the future never had an expiration date. It was constantly rolling over, right? It's constantly rolling over. Well, one of the things with this perpetual future, which is going to sound crazy to your audience, is the leverage on this product was 125 to 1.
Wait,
what does that mean? That means, 100. Some exchanges were 100 to 1, and some were actually as high as 125 to 1. So that basically means that you're going to the house. Let's say you're going to a casino, just because it feels like a casino at 125 to 1.
125 to 1 odds.
And you're going to get it. You're going to put $1 on the table. They're going to give you $125 to use and gamble with, right?
Yeah.
So one wrong mistake, you're blown out, right?
Done.
And you have to make up the losses. You sneeze, you make a mistake, boom, it's gone. That will never fly in the U.S. If you look at margin here in the U.S., where you trade those futures contracts, it's usually the collateral requirement is around 30 to 33%. Okay. So it's like roughly 3 to 1 leverage versus 125. Which is just mind-boggling. It's crazy. And unfortunately, what happened was with the BitMEX is they were told not to solicit into the United States. And after the regulatory bodies looked into it, they found instances where they were pitching clients in the U.S. and they actually faced sanctions and lawsuits and even, I think, some jail time on top of that. So the point I'm trying to say is, as challenging as it is in the U.S., it's actually a good thing. Now, if we're going to talk about offshore, I think the natural progression is think about the benefits it has to some of these countries where there's hyperinflation and the valuation of their own currency is declining. Even we all know about El Salvador, adopting it as legal tender in their own country because they were frustrated with their own currency and the inflation that was going on. So now you have places like El Salvador and other countries where they're looking at these hard currencies. Even think about it like this. Let's say you've got family in South America. You're making money in dollars. They're barely holding on in South America.
Right.
You could quickly move Bitcoin from point A to point B in less than a minute, and you could help support your family. And that, in like in El Salvador or other countries, is legal tender. You literally move it to their wallet, and you don't have to worry about walking around with cash. All you have to do is, and it might have been mentioned in your last podcast about crypto, is flash a little barcode that's associated to your account, and it's immediately deducted from your holdings.
Yeah. That's it. It's the speed of, and I have VAs in other countries and stuff like that. So I go through an app, I got to pay them and kind of go through process, verify this, all that kind of stuff, which is fine. At least they know it's getting paid, but then they have to wait 3-4 days for their money. And then they got to pay this, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, why?
Well, think about it even this way, Navid. Like most of your audience has probably heard of the SWIFT system.
Yes.
SWIFT system is the international movement of monies across the world, right? They charge, on average, 1% of the total value of the notional that you're going to move. They take a fee of 1%.
Oh,
That's insane. Yeah, 1%. And depending on the jurisdiction you're moving it to, it could take up to a week to move it. Yeah. Well, let's think about it from this standpoint. Yeah, there's some ongoing issues with XRP, but let's use the XRP Ripple as an example here. Mm-hmm. Ripple, there's examples of people moving $30 million of Ripple in less than 60 seconds, less than a minute, for pennies. That's a threat to our own banking system.
Absolutely.
That's why you've got lobbyists fighting the regulators and trying to put their own view and spin on crypto because they're threatened by it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said it, because obviously, you can say what you want about it, but those who are billionaires now are saying it's a joke, it's a joke, it's a joke. Well, they're saying it's a joke because they know that it's threatening them. It's threatening their wealth and stuff like that, because they like being that elite. They like being the elite. No one's touching them and stuff like that. Now, when it's decentralized, it gives a heartbeat to everybody that, oh, wait, you can play my territory. You can come and do this. You can do this. I don't like that. So I have a voice, a very powerful voice. So let me go to use it and start making this thing tank, because I don't want it threatening my lifestyle and stuff like that. That's exactly what happens. A lot of people don't see it. A lot of people, it's a conspiracy. It's not conspiracy theory, not anything like that. It's legit. It's when you fear something, especially something you don't understand, something that fears your comfort zone that you've lived off of some, and it's like, whoa. I like being elite. No longer. Right. So now let me do some damage. Let me see what I can do. Start messing around with it and stuff. And
you open up banking to the masses. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
The unbanked are now get banking abilities.
Yeah. That's like we touched on last time, right? The last episode, we said a dime will always be a dime, but a tenth of a Bitcoin, a tenth of Ethereum, a tenth of wherever is known, that tenth will increase, exponentially and stuff like that with that. So in regards to onshore and offshore stuff like that, how much activity are you seeing in offshore transactions?
I would say that there's a list of jurisdictions that we work with that from an international standpoint, and I do see firms from Europe, Asia, and South America in approved jurisdictions trading on ErisX and taking advantage of the benefits of our pool of liquidity here in the U.S.
Do you think more countries outside the U.S. are more open to crypto than within?
I think that I feel like we're a laggard at times with some of the regulation that we've been letting other companies and countries thrive. It kind of go back to think about it. Like I touched on before, we talked about the executive order that Biden was planning on cryptocurrencies. Part of that executive order was including our own U.S. digital currency from the Fed, like creating our own Fed coin, right? Well, this is something that's coming on the heels of what China's already had in place for over a year. They created their own coin. They created their own digital currency. And China being China said to 6 different organizations, including Alibaba, you're going to accept this currency as payment. And it's starting to expand. And then they, in turn, can track how the movement of money is.
That's right.
And also think about it. The Fed loves to print money. At the end of the day, there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever mined or minted.
Yeah, that's right. So those who are listening, so there's anytime you do crypto, it's called white paper, right? So on the white paper, it tells you, hey, by this year, and I want to say, is it 2140? I think in 2140, I think it's going to be done printing for Bitcoin. But if you look at the white paper, every single one, it tells you this is how many we're printing, and then this is by the time it's going to get done. And that's the elusiveness of these currencies there and stuff like that, is that there's a certain limit, right? It's I hate to put it this way, but think of like a famous artist, right? Once the artist passes away, right, their albums, their music goes up, everything's more expensive, stuff they autographed is more expensive. Why? Because that artist can never sign that document again. The artist can never autograph that picture again. So the value of that piece goes up because it can never be, oh, well, he or she will be at a signing at the mall here. No, they won't. They passed on. So the opportunity of getting someone to autograph something is gone. Same concept. The opportunity to buy Bitcoin once it's done, they're all printed and it's it. You can't just go, hey, we need $3 trillion because of a pandemic. No, you can't do that. It's not. And so that's the value. And I think that's where kind of people forget, I shouldn't say forget, like they don't realize that it's almost like the NFT. People are like, well, why is NFT so much? Listen, why is the Pablo Picasso painting so much? Why is the Red Noir
limited
so much?
supply?
Limited
you just
supply,
nailed it.
exactly.
Limited supply.
That's why.
And to take it even a step further, if you think about this, I would say probably 25 to 30% of that coin, those coins at 21 million, are probably going to be lost over time. People are going to forget passwords. People are going to make mistakes. So that supply is actually less than 21 million, which increases the value even more.
That's a good point. You think about that. You're right. Because I mean, how many times you sit out, you have $5 and a $5 bill and $1 bill on the couch, and you get up, you're like, where's my $5 bill? Where's my $1 bill? Because you lost it in the couch, right? Same concept. You're going to forget a password. You're going to lose something. You're going to be like, oh, did I do a capital R or lowercase R? I can't remember anymore, stuff like that. And you're locked out. When you're locked out, that's it.
You're done.
You're done. There is.
That guy who left the keys on his laptop and it went to the garbage dump, he's like working out deals with people to try to find it in this dump, and he's offering a reward, a percentage of what his crypto would be worth.
That's right. Yeah. I was like, so look, guys, you just really got to be, and I don't, not to get off tangent here, but we're just trying to tell you that the opportunities of Bitcoin, the opportunities of cryptocurrency are still here. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. So forget what you heard. I don't care what gets put on, in my opinion, what executive order gets signed or anything like that. It's not going anywhere. He's not going to put it, in my opinion, not going to do an executive order to ban it. He's going to say, look, it's here to stay. How can we make it coexist with what we have? Right. That's what's going to be, stuff like that, which again is just an opportunity of the strength that's behind it, which is why I think it just needs to be, it needs to be endorsed, or it needs to be at least listened to a little bit more than normal.
Absolutely.
So is that all you have for offshore, onshore, or is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, the one thing I just want to add, just so your audience knows, is the fees. One of the sections I included in here is what it would cost and how do you access the market. Yeah, so what it was, Navid, so we support two types of accounts here. We support the IRA accounts, which is next generation trust, and the members that want to come through as a self-directed IRA or an LLC. People that come aboard and become members with that type of an account are charged 50 basis points per execution. No account opening fees, no custody fees, simple and transparent. If you wanted to come direct to the exchange, and I don't mean by self-direct with an IRA, I mean onboard directly to the exchange, similar to what if you're opening up a brokerage account at Ameritrade or E-Trade, and you come to ErisX and you decide to onboard with ErisX, the fees are slightly different. It would be a 20 basis point charge for removing liquidity. And when you add liquidity, you post a bid or an offer on the exchange order book, and somebody comes in and hits or lifts your bid or your offer, I'm going to pay you back 1 basis point. So if you look at some of the other exchanges out there, they could be 50, 60 basis points to enter their orders, and they're not paying you to add liquidity. We're doing the complete opposite.
Yeah. So again, just another advantage right there. So again, he had talked about direct as in that, and then the self-directed as well. If you're not sure what he's talking about for self-directed, check out episode 1 for self-directed IRAs and kind of go from there. So We're gonna wrap this one up here, this particular on onshore and offshore, and then we're gonna close it out next week. We're gonna talk about mass adoption. What is it? Well, you gotta tune in and listen out. We're gonna John's gonna join us again next week. He's gonna help me close out this episode, the series here, with this 4-part series. Series 1, we talked about custody oversight. We talked about self-directed versus LLC IRAs. Series number 2, we talked about regulations. Series number 3, which is this one right here, we talk about offshore and onshore. Now we're going to close out with mass adoption, which has a lot of subtopics in it as well. So I need you guys to listen to it. And this way you can kind of bring it home. And then again, the beauty of it, listen to as much as you want and ask whatever you want. John, don't go anywhere. Those who are listening, each and every week, I close out saying the same thing. Just do right by the client. If you take care of the client, everything else will fall into place. And sometimes that's you. Sometimes you're just the client yourself. Take care of yourself and everything else will fall into place. Be good to each other. Be good to yourself. Be safe out there and take care. See you guys next week.